As plantas crescerão melhor se você regá-las regularmente.
The plants will grow better if you water them regularly. The plants will grow better if you water them regularly.
Ela quer cultivar seus próprios vegetais no quintal.
She wants to grow her own vegetables in the backyard. She wants to grow her own vegetables in the backyard.
Percebi que meus filhos cresceram muito rápido.
I've noticed that my children have grown so fast. I've noticed that my children have grown so fast.
Sua paixão pela música cresceu ao longo dos anos.
His passion for music has grown over the years. His passion for music has grown over the years.
As flores no jardim cresceram altas e vibrantes na primavera.
The flowers in the garden grew tall and vibrant in the spring. The flowers in the garden grew tall and vibrant in the spring.
Eles esperam expandir seus negócios internacionalmente.
They hope to grow their business by expanding internationally. They hope to grow their business by expanding internationally.
A árvore cresceu rapidamente depois que a plantamos no ano passado.
The tree grew quickly after we planted it last year. The tree grew quickly after we planted it last year.
Preciso desenvolver minhas.
I need to grow my skills to advance in my career. I need to grow my skills to advance in my career.
Habilidades para progredir na minha carreira. A cidade cresceu significativamente na última década.
The town has grown significantly in the last decade. The town has grown significantly in the last decade.
Precisamos cultivar mais alimentos para alimentar a população crescente.
We need to grow more food to feed the increasing population. We need to grow more food to feed the increasing population.
As plantas na estufa estão crescendo bem.
The plants in the greenhouse are growing well. The plants in the greenhouse are growing well.
Não acredito no quanto meu irmãozinho cresceu.
I can't believe how much my little brother has grown. I can't believe how much my little brother has grown.
Ele quer deixar a barba crescer, mas leva tempo.
He wants to grow a beard, but it takes time. He wants to grow a beard, but it takes time.
Eles planejam cultivar seus próprios produtos orgânicos para vender no mercado.
They plan to grow their own organic produce to sell at the market. They plan to grow their own organic produce to sell at the market.
O riso das crianças ficou mais alto enquanto brincavam lá fora.
The children's laughter grew louder as they played outside. The children's laughter grew louder as they played outside.
Decidi cultivar minhas próprias ervas em pequenos vasos no parapeito da janela.
I decided to grow my own herbs in small pots on the windowsill. I decided to grow my own herbs in small pots on the windowsill.
Conforme a história se desenrolava, a excitação na sala aumentava.
As the story unfolded, the excitement in the room grew. As the story unfolded, the excitement in the room grew.
O centro comunitário se tornou um centro de eventos locais.
The community center has grown into a hub for local events. The community center has grown into a hub for local events.
Aprendi a apreciar música clássica ao longo do tempo.
I have grown to appreciate classical music over time. I have grown to appreciate classical music over time.
Precisamos aumentar nossa base de clientes para permanecermos competitivos.
We need to grow our customer base to remain competitive. We need to grow our customer base to remain competitive.
A empresa pretende crescer oferecendo novos produtos.
The company aims to grow by offering new products. The company aims to grow by offering new products.
Ela cresceu em uma cidade pequena antes de se mudar para a cidade.
She grew up in a small town before moving to the city. She grew up in a small town before moving to the city.
É incrível ver o quanto a cidade cresceu ao longo dos anos.
It's amazing to see how much the city has grown over the years. It's amazing to see how much the city has grown over the years.
A árvore cresceu o suficiente para fornecer sombra em dias quentes.
The tree has grown tall enough to provide shade on hot days. The tree has grown tall enough to provide shade on hot days.
Meu jardim cresceu lindamente este ano por causa do cuidado extra que dei a ele.
My garden grew beautifully this year because of the extra care I gave it. My garden grew beautifully this year because of the extra care I gave it.
Estou tentando aumentar minhas economias investindo com sabedoria.
I'm trying to grow my savings by investing wisely. I'm trying to grow my savings by investing wisely.
Ela cresceu de uma adolescente tímida para uma adulta confiante.
She grew from a shy teenager to a confident adult. She grew from a shy teenager to a confident adult.
A ideia do projeto surgiu após várias sessões de brainstorming.
The idea for the project grew after several brainstorming sessions. The idea for the project grew after several brainstorming sessions.
As plantações cresceram bem nesta temporada graças ao clima ameno.
The crops grew well this season thanks to the mild weather. The crops grew well this season thanks to the mild weather.
Demorou, mas eles passaram a confiar completamente um no outro.
It took time, but they grew to trust each other completely. It took time, but they grew to trust each other completely.
Ele começou a gostar de caminhadas depois de sua primeira viagem no verão passado.
He has grown fond of hiking after his first trip last summer. He has grown fond of hiking after his first trip last summer.
O negócio começou pequeno, mas cresceu rapidamente devido ao marketing online.
The business started small, but grew rapidly due to online marketing. The business started small, but grew rapidly due to online marketing.
Pretendo aumentar minha rotina de exercícios aumentando a intensidade do meu treino.
I plan to grow my fitness routine by increasing my workout intensity. I plan to grow my fitness routine by increasing my workout intensity.
As flores no jardim crescem novamente a cada primavera.
The flowers in the garden grow back every spring. The flowers in the garden grow back every spring.
Vimos as crianças crescerem diante dos nossos olhos.
We watched the children grow up right before our eyes. We watched the children grow up right before our eyes.
Ela criou seu próprio negócio do zero com muito trabalho duro.
She grew her own business from scratch with a lot of hard work. She grew her own business from scratch with a lot of hard work.
As videiras cresceram na lateral da casa, cobrindo as paredes, seu.
The vines grew up the side of the house, covering the walls. The vines grew up the side of the house, covering the walls.
Interesse por fotografia aumentou desde que ele comprou uma câmera nova.
His interest in photography has grown since he bought a new camera. His interest in photography has grown since he bought a new camera.
É importante que as crianças cresçam em um ambiente acolhedor.
It's important for children to grow in a nurturing environment. It's important for children to grow in a nurturing environment.
Ao longo dos anos, sua experiência na área aumentou substancialmente.
Over the years, his expertise in the field has grown substantially. Over the years, his expertise in the field has grown substantially.
A população da cidade continua a crescer a cada ano.
The city's population continues to grow each year. The city's population continues to grow each year.
Ela começou a se sentir mais confortável falando em público.
She started to grow more comfortable with public speaking. She started to grow more comfortable with public speaking.
As plantas crescem melhor quando recebem luz solar suficiente.
The plants grow best when they receive enough sunlight. The plants grow best when they receive enough sunlight.
A banda cresceu em popularidade depois que lançou seu primeiro álbum.
The band grew in popularity after they released their first album. The band grew in popularity after they released their first album.
Espero aumentar minha compreensão de diferentes culturas.
I hope to grow in my understanding of different cultures. I hope to grow in my understanding of different cultures.
Ele está planejando cultivar jardim neste verão para relaxar.
He's planning to grow a garden this summer to relax. He's planning to grow a garden this summer to relax.
Eles viram o negócio crescer de uma pequena loja para uma grande loja.
They watched the business grow from a small shop to a large store. They watched the business grow from a small shop to a large store.
Ela está aprendendo a cultivar plantas dentro de casa durante os meses de inverno.
She is learning how to grow plants indoors during the winter months. She is learning how to grow plants indoors during the winter months.
As sementes que plantamos na semana passada crescerão e se tornarão lindas flores.
The seeds we planted last week will grow into beautiful flowers. The seeds we planted last week will grow into beautiful flowers.
A empresa está crescendo rapidamente no mercado asiático.
The company is growing rapidly in the Asian market. The company is growing rapidly in the Asian market.
Suas habilidades em codificação aumentaram desde que ele começou o curso.
His skills in coding have grown since he started the course. His skills in coding have grown since he started the course.
À medida que envelheço, sinto que estou ficando mais sábio.
As I get older, I feel like I'm growing wiser. As I get older, I feel like I'm growing wiser.
A demanda por seus produtos continua a crescer a cada ano.
The demand for their product continues to grow every year. The demand for their product continues to grow every year.
Eu vi o gatinho crescer e se tornar gato forte e brincalhão.
I watched the kitten grow into a strong and playful cat. I watched the kitten grow into a strong and playful cat.
A economia deve crescer de forma constante nos próximos anos.
The economy is expected to grow steadily in the coming years. The economy is expected to grow steadily in the coming years.
Eles precisam aumentar seu conhecimento de marketing digital para ter sucesso.
They need to grow their knowledge of digital marketing to succeed. They need to grow their knowledge of digital marketing to succeed.
Ela criou uma coleção de selos raros ao longo dos anos.
She grew a collection of rare stamps over the years. She grew a collection of rare stamps over the years.
Estou tentando aumentar minha rede, participando de mais eventos profissionais.
I'm trying to grow my network by attending more professional events. I'm trying to grow my network by attending more professional events.
A excitação na sala aumentou quando o show começou.
The excitement in the room grew as the concert began. The excitement in the room grew as the concert began.
A empresa planeja aumentar sua linha de produtos com novas ofertas inovadoras.
The company plans to grow its product line with innovative new offerings. The company plans to grow its product line with innovative new offerings.
Ela se tornou mais independente desde que saiu da casa dos pais.
She's grown more independent since moving out of her parents' house. She's grown more independent since moving out of her parents' house.
As obras de arte das crianças ficaram mais complexas conforme elas praticavam.
The children's artwork grew more intricate as they practiced. The children's artwork grew more intricate as they practiced.
A confiança do atleta cresceu a cada competição bem-sucedida.
The athlete's confidence grew with each successful competition. The athlete's confidence grew with each successful competition.
O negócio se tornou um dos maiores da área.
The business has grown into one of the largest in the area. The business has grown into one of the largest in the area.
Nós vimos o bairro crescer nos últimos anos.
We watched the neighborhood grow over the last few years. We watched the neighborhood grow over the last few years.
Ele ficou mais forte após meses de treinamento intenso.
He grew stronger after months of intense training. He grew stronger after months of intense training.
Eles esperam aumentar sua influência no mercado global.
They hope to grow their influence in the global market. They hope to grow their influence in the global market.
Sua coleção de livros cresceu a cada ano.
Her collection of books grew larger each year. Her collection of books grew larger each year.
O restaurante local se tornou popular depois de ser destaque em uma revista de culinária.
The local restaurant grew popular after being featured in a food magazine. The local restaurant grew popular after being featured in a food magazine.
Sua paixão por tecnologia cresceu ao longo do tempo.
His passion for technology has grown over time. His passion for technology has grown over time.
As receitas da empresa cresceram significativamente após o lançamento do novo produto.
The company's revenues grew significantly after they launched the new product. The company's revenues grew significantly after they launched the new product.
Ao longo dos anos, passei a amar caminhadas nas montanhas.
Over the years, I've grown to love hiking in the mountains. Over the years, I've grown to love hiking in the mountains.
A atleta cresceu em habilidade e confiança a cada temporada.
The athlete grew in skill and confidence with each season. The athlete grew in skill and confidence with each season.
Ela aumentou seus seguidores nas redes sociais postando regularmente.
She has grown her social media following by posting regularly. She has grown her social media following by posting regularly.
Os botões de flores cresceram e se tornaram flores brilhantes e coloridas.
The flower buds grew into bright, colorful blossoms. The flower buds grew into bright, colorful blossoms.
O negócio da família cresceu com muito trabalho e dedicação.
Their family business grew with hard work and dedication. Their family business grew with hard work and dedication.
A economia da cidade cresceu rapidamente após a chegada das novas empresas de tecnologia.
The city's economy grew quickly after the new tech companies moved in. The city's economy grew quickly after the new tech companies moved in.
A garotinha ficou animada com a aproximação do aniversário.
The little girl grew excited as her birthday approached. The little girl grew excited as her birthday approached.
A organização planeja aumentar sua equipe contratando novos funcionários.
The organization plans to grow its team by hiring new employees. The organization plans to grow its team by hiring new employees.
Com o passar do tempo, a amizade dela se tornou mais profunda e forte.
As time passed, their friendship grew deeper and stronger. As time passed, their friendship grew deeper and stronger.
A nova startup de tecnologia cresceu rapidamente graças a uma forte estratégia de marketing.
The new tech startup has grown quickly thanks to a strong marketing strategy. The new tech startup has grown quickly thanks to a strong marketing strategy.
A empresa pretende aumentar sua presença na Europa este ano.
The company is aiming to grow its presence in Europe this year. The company is aiming to grow its presence in Europe this year.
Seu conhecimento de história aumentou desde que ele começou a ter aulas.
His knowledge of history has grown since he started taking classes. His knowledge of history has grown since he started taking classes.
Vimos o filhote crescer e se tornar um cão adulto.
We watched the puppy grow into an adult dog. We watched the puppy grow into an adult dog.
As árvores na floresta cresceram tanto que tocaram o céu.
The trees in the forest grew so tall that they touched the sky. The trees in the forest grew so tall that they touched the sky.
Ela espera aumentar seu público criando mais conteúdo.
She's hoping to grow her audience by creating more content. She's hoping to grow her audience by creating more content.
Sua compreensão do assunto aumentou depois de ter aulas extras.
His understanding of the subject grew after taking extra lessons. His understanding of the subject grew after taking extra lessons.
As flores começaram a crescer assim que as regamos.
The flowers began to grow as soon as we watered them. The flowers began to grow as soon as we watered them.
A popularidade do restaurante cresceu depois que eles reformularam o menu.
The restaurant's popularity grew after they revamped the menu. The restaurant's popularity grew after they revamped the menu.
Estou tentando aumentar minha confiança enfrentando meus medos.
I'm trying to grow my confidence by facing my fears. I'm trying to grow my confidence by facing my fears.
A videira continuou a crescer e se espalhar pelo jardim.
The vine continued to grow and spread across the garden. The vine continued to grow and spread across the garden.
O relacionamento deles ficou mais forte depois que eles superaram suas diferenças.
The relationship grew stronger after they overcame their differences. The relationship grew stronger after they overcame their differences.
O cabelo do bebê começou a crescer quando ela completou 6 meses.
The baby's hair started to grow as she reached 6 months. The baby's hair started to grow as she reached 6 months.
Eles estão planejando aumentar sua equipe contratando especialistas no próximo trimestre.
They're planning to grow their team by hiring specialists in the next quarter. They're planning to grow their team by hiring specialists in the next quarter.
A marca da empresa cresceu e se tornou sinônimo de qualidade.
The company's brand has grown to become synonymous with quality. The company's brand has grown to become synonymous with quality.
Sua capacidade de resolver problemas complexos cresceu após anos de prática.
His ability to solve complex problems grew after years of practice. His ability to solve complex problems grew after years of practice.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and stay tuned for the upcoming episodes to keep improving your English. And remember, listening, practice, and improve.